Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Copper Jacket TV. So I think we can all agree that the California handgun roster is one of the most absurd infringements on your Second Amendment rights in the entire state of California. I don't think our founding fathers ever envisioned that the Second Amendment would be relegated to a government-approved list. But that's what we have with the roster. Well, today we're going to be taking a look behind the scenes, and we're going to talk about why some pistols are being denied approval for the roster and how ridiculous those reasons are. Because you have to remember, micro-stamping is no longer a thing thanks to Bolin v. Bonta and the CRPA. Micro-stamping is currently enjoined. So they still need to have a loaded chamber indicator, they still have to have a magazine disconnect, and they still have to pass the tests. But when you find out the one reason that some of these are being denied, you're not going to believe it, so stay tuned. Now, real quick, if you're somebody who carries to defend yourself or your loved ones, and you're doing so without an attorney in your back pocket, you are doing it the wrong way. Because heaven forbid you're out there and one day you actually find the need to defend yourself and the details get a little bit fuzzy, you could be the one that ends up in handcuffs, in which case you will need somebody on your side. And that's where Attorneys on Retainer comes in. Now, with that Attorneys on Retainer membership, you do have an attorney in your back pocket, because if something, God forbid, happens, all you have to do is simply call the number on the back of that card, and you will speak to an actual attorney who can guide you through the next steps. They will also get an attorney out there to defend you. You can choose one from their network, or you can choose your own attorney. They are not an insurance company. These are attorneys that are working directly for you. So it is the same as having an attorney ready to go in your back pocket at all times. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. So over the weekend, I had the pleasure of meeting one of the nicest guys in the 2A community and one of the most important guys in the California 2A community, Kostas Moros. If you guys don't know who he is and you live in California, you need to know who he is. He goes on Twitter by @MorosKostas. He works for the CRPA. He is an attorney for Michelle & Associates, and he's worked on a lot of these big cases. And this is one of the topics that came up, was the roster and some of the roster requirements. Now, interestingly enough, just days after talking about that with Kostas, Chuck Michelle of Michelle & Associates and the president of the CRPA made a post on X that was extremely eye-opening. He just posted this earlier today, and I want to share with you guys because this will kind of show you some of the games that are being played behind the scenes that are keeping some of your favorite pistols off the roster, even though micro-stamping is no longer a thing. So in his post, he says, previously I had announced that CRPA had heard back from the California DOJ regarding a Public Records Act request we had sent about handguns that were denied inclusion on the roster due to insufficient chamber-loaded indicators, CLI. We learned that the denials were due to font sizes that were too small and lack of compliant visual indicators and so forth. We have just received additional responsive documents from the DOJ which explain their position that pursuant to California Code of Regulations, the explanatory text for the CLIs must be permanently displayed by engraving, stamping, etching, molding, casting, or other means permanently marking. If the explanatory text can be removed, such as with acetone, that will not be sufficient for roster approval. Now, more importantly, he goes on to say, our hope is to defeat the unconstitutional roster requirements, including the CLI requirement, through our ongoing lawsuit Bolin v. Bonta. We have already had some success through our defeat of the micro-stamping requirement, which has allowed several semi-automatic handguns to make it onto the roster for the first time in a decade. Now, obviously, the California DOJ would just rather not approve anything new at all, but thanks to lawsuits like Bolin, they're kind of forced to, right? So what does the California Department of Justice do? Well, they start getting nitpicky. They start taking a look at the finer, nuanced details of something as stupid as the loaded chamber indicator and denying approval to the roster just based on that. And you want to see how stupid the requirements are for that loaded chamber indicator? We'll take a look at that here in just a second. It's not just simply something that shows up that says, hey, there's something in the chamber, which, makes sense, right? Or something that pops out the back that says, hey, there's something in the chamber. That's not enough for California. It has to fit the specific requirements or it's not approved. Okay, so here are California's ridiculous requirements for a simple thing like a loaded chamber indicator. This is from the Legal Information Institute. It says 1. A functioning chamber load indicator must meet all of the following conditions. A. Explanatory text and or graphics either incorporated within the chamber load indicator or adjacent to the chamber load indicator are permanently displayed by engraving, stamping, etching, molding, casting, or other means of permanently marking. Each letter of explanatory text must have a minimum height of 1/16 inch. If it's less than that, then it's not going to be approved. C. The explanatory text and or graphics shall be of distinct visual contrast to that of the firearm. D. The loaded indication, that portion of the chamber loaded indicator that visually indicates there is a round in the chamber, shall be of distinct color or contrast to the firearm. E. Only when there is a round in the chamber, the loaded indication is visible on the firearm from the distance of at least 24 inches. So from 2 feet away, you have to be able to see that. Where there is no round in the chamber, the loaded indicator must not be visible. F. The text and or graphics on the loaded indication together inform a reasonably foreseeable adult user of the pistol that a round is in the chamber without requiring the user to refer to a user's manual or any other resource other than the pistol itself. Now, keep in mind, that's just one of the requirements, right? There's also the magazine disconnect. It has to go through other forms of testing that the DOJ puts it through, including drop testing. There's a lot that has to happen behind the scenes. And if any one of those things is not seen by the DOJ as being just perfect and falls within their guidelines, then it doesn't get approved. So for everybody out there wondering why their favorite thing still hasn't shown up on the roster, even after micro-stamping has been enjoined, it's because they still have to jump through hoops. They have to go through a complete gauntlet in order to be approved. And it's not as easy as it seems on the surface. Behind the scenes, the DOJ will nitpick everything that they possibly can. So I wanted to share that with you. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Happy New Year to everybody out there. You guys have a great day.